While taking care of your physical health is absolutely a huge priority, equally as important is taking care of your mental health. Having your mental health in check is extremely important, especially with these polarizing times in our world. We especially need to normalize taking care of mental health in the world of music. For many years, we've heard the tragic stories of musicians and others in that space who have succumbed to mental health challenges when they otherwise felt there was nowhere else to turn. For more information and how to support this cause, visit Live Beyond on Instagram at live.beyond27 or on Facebook at Beyond27. Thank you for your support.
The Earnestly Speaking Podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, Earnestly Speaking Podcast. Let's get it. I'm a giant in New York, in Miami carry heat. So much more in store, my product can flood the street. Opinion Nation Godfather, CEO. Puff in the late 90s, gon' see me blow. Oh. Got my hustle on, no imitation of that. Army of untouchables, Opinion Nation staff. Never an off season, homie, check the numbers. Heart throbbing my own right, supplying southern comfort. Earnestly speaking, my ego is well fed. Earnestly speaking, you're too feeble and no threat. See, I'm like a hurricane, you're a mild breeze. Earnestly speaking, leaving Eli a dynasty. Shake!
Earnestly Speaking Podcast, recording this Thursday afternoon around 3 o'clock, January 22nd, 2026. Wow, I couldn't say that properly. January 22nd, 2026. Once again, going audio only. And I also have to, I think I really like doing the solo shows with audio only. This doesn't sound really weird, but I feel like when I do the solo shows with camera, not that I'm worried about looking at myself in the camera. I've obviously been doing it for a long time. That's not a problem. But I feel like the video aspect for me anyway, when I don't have a guest, it's kind of a distraction in a sense. I feel like I'm very distracted on lighting and everything else. And sometimes I want to come here and just pop and record a 25-minute podcast that, make sure the hair is, wearing the right t-shirt and, whatever. If I don't want to look dressed up or look up for the show, I don't want to do that. So I don't know. I just feel like there's a certain thing about the doing the shows without, at least the solo shows without the camera aspect that I like, the privacy aspect of that I do like. So I like I said, I won't commit to doing all of them like this way going forward. I'll pick and choose which shows I want to do with video, without video. Obviously with the guests, and with the guests too also, and you've seen in some moments in the last couple of years too also, while we've gone to a video format, mainly for the last couple of years, not all our shows are video. There were episodes I have done recently that the guests have asked to not do video. We just do audio only, which is fine. As long as you can find the content on the YouTube, which we do, as long as you find the content on, on any podcast publisher that you guys decide to, subscribe to, it's fine. As long as you can find the content, that's all that matters at the end of the day. Whether you can see me or hear me, as long as you're hearing the content, listen to the content, it doesn't matter. So I want to thank you guys for, of course, for being here with me. We haven't done a solo show, and we haven't done a solo show where I'm able to talk freely about something that didn't have like a brand to it in quite a while, actually. The last solo show I think I've done was probably before I was checking the last time we actually did a solo show where I was able to just like shoot the shit, if you will. It was literally a month ago. It was literally a month today, actually. In fact, the episode title Still Settling In, where I discussed the move recently. Went to the Creed concert. I discussed a little bit of the Mets off season, the top 5 Rob Reiner movies, all that kind of stuff. And I don't like, I know for a long time I would do a lot of solo shows, and I would just spew out and just kind of riff whatever. But I haven't really had nothing to say really in recent weeks. I've been tied up with the family, with with the holidays, and tied up with other things that nature, and just kind of like been diving into just like everything going on. I've been working a lot as of late too. Also, I've been, there's a lot going on. And the other shows I honestly I've been doing also too. And there's some motivation to not do shows like that for the time being, and that some things build up a little bit. But it's been a little while since we had a chance to really shoot the shit, in this way. So a couple of life updates here. We've been living here in this place now for almost 2 months, the new apartment here. Very happy here so far. It hasn't been smooth though, not because of us. I think I mentioned to you guys on the last time we spoke about this. There were things that we came into this place where we were not prepared and whatnot. Certain things were not up to speed. There was a bug issue, a little bit of like a roach issue for a while that had nothing to do with us at all, which thankfully is now finally solved. After a few weeks, it was finally solved. But we have like also neighbors upstairs, and this is the hard part. I'm moving from a townhouse to an apartment again. Is that now we live on the first floor. Our neighbors upstairs are very loud. Now I do have some sympathy because like there's a 2-year-old up there that is up there, very cute kid. 2-year-old. They don't know any better. You know what I'm saying? I have 2 kids. I get it. But they're so fucking loud. They are so loud, and there are moments you'll hear nothing for hours upon hours. And then out of nowhere for a good 2-3 hours, you'll hear pitter patter and walking and stomping and all this stuff, and even conversations, and it gets annoying. And my wife gets very ornery about that stuff, especially with her and her schedule where she works some of these odd hours. And even at 2-3 in the morning, you're hearing this stuff. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So it gets really annoying and it gets really, really aggravating to hear this stuff all the time. And I get it. I totally get it. So we've complained to the office about, hey, listen, there's a lot of noise here. We sent videos also to the fact that they made a lot of noises in here, and what can you do really? You know what I mean? This is what happens when you move into an apartment. This is one of the reasons why I'm happy here. There's certain perks here of living in this place here. Is also number one biggest perk, of course, is the financial part. We're saving a lot of money by moving here. We lose a little bit of space, but not really much, honestly. And I got a bigger recording space to do my podcast in the garage. But the hard part, really, more than anything else, is the fact that you do now live closer to people around you that this can happen. And sure enough, we have. And I was, having neighbors that are a little bit louder. It kind of sucks. It does suck in that way. But we just gotta deal with it as it is for the time being. But we have that. Just trying to stay healthy. Working on getting my A1C down. Working on exercising every day. Working 2 miles a day, which I slacked on the last week again. Which I need to get back to. In fact, what I'm going to do probably after I record this podcast, I'm going to go walking. Things are okay so far. 2026 has not been bad. Like I said, a couple challenges here and things the wife and I want to do the rest of the year. We have a lot of like goals for this year, but things are okay. Things are pretty much okay. What I didn't realize today, I found out later after the fact, was today is the 20th anniversary of Kobe Bryant's 81-point game. Now I said that because of the fact that earlier today I recorded my NBA show with Greg Arinia. And we did like almost 2-hour show on mid-season awards and grades for the team so far in the NBA throughout the season. But I forgot to mention the Kobe Bryant 81-point game, which would have been perfect to discuss with him. Now it's funny, like that era for me. I wasn't okay. So there've been times I've been an NBA fan 37 years, whatever. I've been an NBA fan a very, very long time, since I was 9 years old. But there've been years where I sort of checked out, and not just the NBA, but even the NFL. There are years where in my 20s, in my early mid 20s, where like life happens. Like I would, especially days when I was in a band and doing shows and being in the studio, recording and writing music. I didn't have time to dedicate my every night to watching NBA basketball or sports for that nature, or even TV. So I didn't prioritize content in my early 20s. I was having fun. I was going out and partying and and going to clubs and granted, I wasn't always in clubs all the time, but I was enjoying being a young 20-year-old. So my sports watching did suffer a little bit and for a couple of years, even in my mid 20s. So Kobe's 81-point game, I did not watch in real time. I was still, I would say even in 2006, I was still kind of in and out. I won't go as far as I was a casual NBA fan, but I was much closer to casual than I was obsessed, at least in 2006, which is weird because that was the year of the Miami Heat won their first NBA title. Now, I was invested in that, obviously, but I wasn't obsessed like I am, I've been in the last 20 years and certainly in my childhood. So the impact of that game doesn't resonate in the same way to me personally, even though I know it's a big deal, obviously. You know, it was the Kobe year where he probably could have won MVP, but he didn't win 50 games. You know my rule. You got to win 50 games to be considered MVP. But I don't have the same investment in that game because I wasn't really, heavy NBA guy for that season, those couple of seasons at that time. But Kobe Bryant has become he's always been polarizing, but the conversation around him, especially posthumously, is still polarizing in a lot of senses. There was a quote actually recently I saw that Jason Williams, the legendary NBA point guard, who played for the Heat, the Kings, white chocolate. He made a comment recently that said that Kobe Bryant is not a top 15 player, as great as he was. And it's like you have guys that Kobe Bryant is so polarizing. There are people who think he's the greatest of all time, and people who think he's not even top 10, top 15. And I've always had a more measured approach to Kobe Bryant. Everybody knows with me, when he first came in the league, I was not a big fan of him because I thought he was trying to copy Jordan. Certainly his game does model Michael Jordan, but at the same time, he had a bit of an arrogance that I did not, at least for me, at 18 years old, I didn't take to very well. But as he got older and you start seeing the work ethic and all other things he was doing, I started becoming a fan. He started growing me. In the whole Shaq Kobe thing, I did take Shaq's side initially, but in the end, he was correct on that. Kobe Bryant was the one that was right. He's the one putting the work in more than Shaq was. This is why he's he's actually the better Laker. Sorry. I won't go as far as say Kobe Bryant's the greatest Laker. I'll still go Magic Johnson, but I think it's a little bit closer than people give credit for it. That's what I'll say. But it doesn't have the same impact on me. But I did watch that game a couple times actually in recent years, and Kobe Bryant 2005-2006 is such an odyssey because the Lakers weren't that good and the team wasn't that good, but he was still great. And he was for all purpose the best player in basketball. Certainly you can argue Tim Duncan maybe, but I would still say Kobe Bryant from 2005 to 2007 was the greatest basketball player on the planet. But I actually look at the 81 point game now with more reverence than I did when it was closer to it at the time. Because again, no one's come close. I mean, 81 point game. I mean, I know he got Dave Robinson 70 points in 1995. Certainly the records Wilt Chamberlain 100 point game and back in his day. But Kobe Bryant 81 point game was incredible. But I always found his career very fascinating because of the fact that he didn't take the route Jordan did. His is more polarizing. His not raising the his relationship with his father off and on with his father. Obviously his marriage to Vanessa and this, he was different. I always found him more interesting than Michael Jordan personally. So, all right, some music talk here. Bruno Mars is back. He's about to release his first album in about 10 years. Put out his first single last week. Love the song, by the way. The song is very catchy. By the way, I saw a quote. If you see Bruno Mars' catalog, for example, you notice that all of his songs are like 3 minutes, 4 minutes or less. And that's by design. And he actually spoke about that, I think, recently. I don't know if it was recent or maybe years ago, that his logic into that is that if I can't capture you and catch you as a fan, if I can't capture you in 2 or 3 minutes, then I'm not going to capture you in 8 or 9. And it makes sense. He's simple to the point. He also announced a new tour. And he's coming to Miami here September 19th and 20th, doing 2 shows at the Hard Rock Stadium. So I want to go. Bruno Mars is one of my favorite artists, current artists anyway. He's definitely a bucket list artist for me I want to see live. But the ticket prices are expensive. They are through the fucking roof. And here's the thing. It's justified right now because right now those shows are almost sold out. I checked the Ticketmaster again recently, and the cheapest ticket to go to see him. The cheapest ticket is I think $3,000 upper deck. No. Is it $2,000? Make sure it's correct there. No, I'm sorry. $400 upper deck. And they're rising right now too, especially. It is crazy. And now look, a lot of those are resales too, also. So people buying up tickets and trying to resell it for more profit. Which I hate that. Like I'm a capitalist, man, but it's just dirty. It's just dirty. It's really dirty, man. And I really want to go, and I really want to take my kids to the show too, especially. So I'm looking right now. Actually, Bruno Mars. Let's see, Bruno Mars all dates. Okay, so the tour starts actually in April 10th in Vegas. So I'm looking at the seats right now. Here's Miami. All right, so Miami is 19th. There we go. So it's set the 19th show. All right. We're gonna pop up here real quick. So tickets for the 19th show, resale tickets. Okay, so right now the cheapest tickets I see right now is for $319, and that is, wait, that's not that bad actually. Hold on. This is section 248. This is actually, well, that's actually not bad actually. 248. It's still a lot of money though. $319 is a lot of money for section 248, limited view. That's the cheapest ticket you see here. There's one here. There's some here for. Hold on. There's some here for 200. Hold on. I'm missing. I'm losing real time, guys. I apologize. So some tickets have gone down a little bit actually, and not just in the upper deck. They've gone down even in the 200 section. So you have the stadiums. You have the 100 section. You have the floor, then the 100 section, and then the 200 section. Then you have the top, the nosebleeds at 300 section. So there are tickets that I see here. So basically, the cheapest tickets right now is $214, and some of those are actually in limited view seating though, but are no, I'm sorry. The $221 I see here, $214 I see here is in the nosebleeds. It's a lot of money, and for me, if it was just me going, it'd be one thing. But my kids want to go too. Also, my oldest son Eli is a huge fan of Bruno Mars. He wants to go to the concert, and I want to reward him because he's been doing both the kids have been doing great in school. Eli's getting right now A's and B's, if not straight A's. He has a 4.0 GPA currently this year. And my wife and I said that I would like to reward him for what he's doing if he continues this. But I don't know if I can hack for the entire family paying over $1,000 for tickets. Plus, they're going to kill us on parking on top of that too. Also at the stadium, I've heard parking there is ridiculous. Then food, if you're going to get food at the stadium, if you want to buy merch at the stadium, it's another couple $100. So you're looking at an experience that can cross or flirt with $2,000 alone. Now, are we still considering going to the concert? Yes, we are. But we're going to monitor these prices to see if they come down a little bit here. You know what I mean? It's not sold out quite yet, but it's very close to being sold out. But I also think a lot of those tickets are also from second market guys, people buying up and resales and stuff. We'll see how that plays out in the coming months. But I'm looking forward to going to the show. I'm glad he's back. The album's coming out soon. The first single is really great, like I said. I Just Might. It's got the name of the song, the first single. Very good stuff there. So yesterday I was driving home. I was teasing my wife yesterday. I was telling her something yesterday. I told her, a joke, because you know how I am with music. I'm very diverse. I don't care what kind of music it is. It could be opera. I love it all. So I made a joke yesterday. I go on the way home. I say, honey, I might be gay. She's like, well, surprise me. I'm not surprised. I go, why do you say that? I go, well, so on the way home from work, which is about a 50-minute drive anyway, I was playing Madonna and Celine Dion. Now, I'm a big fan of both, obviously. I'm a huge fan of Madonna, first off. Let's start there. And I was playing Madonna just because I get into these, once in a while, there are certain artists I'll get into deep dives with, and this deep dive, and especially ones I'm big fans of. And I went through a little bit of a deep dive last night on Madonna. And I was thinking about this, and I'm going to do this I'm probably on the next episode, do a top 5 for this. And certainly do a Music Lounge series episode on Madonna's catalog, her top 10 songs, my favorite top 10 songs of hers. But I was thinking to myself to listen to a lot of her stuff, like her music catalog is, especially for females, is really unmatched. Like if you did a versus, for example, of Madonna versus any other female artist in the history of pop music, she would hold up pretty well. I don't know if she'll beat everybody, but she will hold up very well. Her catalog is phenomenal. And it's weird because she is actually the highest selling female artist of all time in music history. And yet, sometimes it feels like that's a surprise. Sometimes it feels like that's a little underrated. Because Madonna was huge in the 80s and 90s, obviously. But even in 2000, she had to hit also, too. Her catalog is amazing. And I opened this discussion with fan members last night about this, and they sort of agreed also, too, that she's definitely a top 5 person. So what I may do on the next solo episode I do, whenever that is, next week or next month, whatever, I may do a top 5 female music catalog ever. Spoiler alert, Madonna is in my top 5. Now, is she number 1? I'm ranking them based on preference, obviously, but she has bangers. Like, people say, oh, I prefer 80s to Madonna. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. My 2 favorite albums of Madonna, actually, are in the 90s. I like Bedtime Stories from 1994, and then my favorite album of hers, Ray of Light from 1997. That album is phenomenal. That Ray of Light, for example, is actually one of my top 20 favorite albums of all time. I remember when that album came out, that was during her Kabbalah phase. That's shortly after she filmed Evita. That album I was stunned at how good that was. It was produced by William Orbit. She was doing a lot of techno stuff at the time and being very experimental with the music, and it was incredible. To me, it's her best record. It was so creative, so out of left field. This woman continues to reinvent herself, continues to even in her 60s, she's still doing it. I mean, obviously, it looks a little weird now because she's trying to keep up with the Joneses and still trying to stay young. But she has done a great job of reinventing herself. She's also, for all intents and purposes now, for all these females who are very provocative and sexual and very open and transparent and authentic, you can argue Madonna was the first artist to really break through. She sat on the sword because she was doing all that crap in the 80s where people were like looking at that like that and judging her for it. I remember for a long time I couldn't stand her because of the fact that I just couldn't stand the overly sexual innuendo she was doing on stage in the 80s, where back in those days I was very conservative. But now as an adult and certainly as a teenager, I got older, I understood it. And no, she's incredible, dude. I would put her catalog up against Janet Jackson, against Mariah Carey. I put her catalog against Celine Dion, Whitney Houston. I'm not saying it's better, because I said we'll do a segment on that in the near future about my top 5 music catalogs of all time. But that catalog, her catalog, absolutely holds up. It absolutely holds up. And she has bangers for 40 years of bangers, 43 years of bangers, from 83 even to now. The song, one of the songs she did recently with The Weeknd, phenomenal song. She has, oh my gosh, I mean, and it's so, there's so many that I forgot. There's some songs that you may forget. Like, oh, this song fell through the ether. Dude, she's incredible. So I love Madonna and what her career. There's a reason why she's the biggest selling female artist of all time. There's a reason why. You know what I mean? So, all right. So recently, I've been making some personal decisions about how I intake media. Politics right now has been so annoying lately. And it's funny for me to say that because I normally do enjoy politics and talking about it with some of my friends that are productive and whatnot, productive conversations, whatever. But I've been so burnt out, not just on political media. I've been very annoyed by sports media in general. So much I've been slowly tuning out some of my menu of daily content I take in every day, and not just sports, but in politics as well too, and even something called pop culture. And what I've been doing recently is there's a lot of TV shows and movies and things of that nature that I've fallen behind on through the years because I put so much time into like other content not named that. And now, as of late, I've been back to watching my Netflix again, back to watching HBO Max, back to watching HBO, going back to watching more enjoyable content that's more, not just better, but just I just need to escape. Politics right now sucks. Like the world's burning, and we know it. And I have my opinions, and you guys know how I feel. You know where I stand politically. I don't need to tell you guys that. Okay, but I'm so burnt out. Even at home, my wife will sit there and she'll, and she's the only person I at this point I can stomach talking about this stuff with, and only because of the fact that she's my wife. You know, she needs someone to talk to, and I'm gonna be there for her to be the shoulder to take in the information. But it doesn't mean I always want to hear it. Not because I don't want to hear her say it, but it's like I'm just burnt out. So I cut back on my menu of media in politics, the many media in sports. Because same old, dude. Like, and I also realized through the years, I think I've always known this, but even more so now as I get older, with less time to do things, I feel like taking in content that's not yours, in a lot of ways, takes away from your own content. If you're a content creator, for example, like myself, and I do podcasts, I have this show, and I'll talk about it in a second, my other show, what I always do. If I'm listening to Stephen A. all the time, or Nick Wright all the time, or listening to CNN or whatever content's out there I listen to on a daily basis, for me anyway. I feel like it takes away from the stuff that I want to put together and put out there. It's almost like makes me paralyzed for what I should be talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like even with sports too, especially. And it's funny because like sports, I do the media game. I do this show. I have a show on my day job I do every week. I appear on other shows, on a weekly basis, and whatnot. And I watch enough football to have an opinion. I don't need other people's opinions to kind of influence my opinion. So I always wonder, why do I put so much time into watching First Take sometimes, or watching all these other media outlets? And not only that, if I'm going to watch media, listen to podcasts or watch videos, I kind of prefer to watch my friends do it, or people who I'm in the trenches with now, doing this on an independent basis. I got a lot of friends and acquaintances that are doing media weekly, daily, bi-weekly, whatever, that are putting out, in my opinion, honestly, I'll keep it real, as good, if not better content than you're seeing in the mainstream. So I've really made a concerted effort to, not that I'm stopping watching, some of those shows, but I'm limiting the amount of time I put into those shows. Because this is too much, dude. This is too much. Like, how much I can only take so much to Stephen A. Smith. I got to only take so much of whatever political show I watch all the time. It's just feeding the head, feeding the brain, and like, okay, enough. And once you start getting in the way of your content to put out, I don't like that. And to boot also, like I said, I'm enjoying watching shows behind that. Like I watched 2 documentaries. I watched one on John Elway on Netflix. Great documentary on that. That was really, really solid. Very cookie cutter. There's some things they didn't go into, but yeah. And then there's a documentary about the when I was behind my ear, the Brett Favre one, the downfall of Favre, the untold one. Learning things about that case, his downfall, and the things that we don't know about, maybe someone didn't know about at the time. It's just, I'm putting more time into that. There's good TV shows I'm watching. There's shows that are returning them I'm excited about. I'd rather watch that stuff, man. Like my wife and I right now are watching one of our favorite shows to come back next week, Shrinking, by Bill Lawrence. Also director of one of my favorite shows of all time, Scrubs. Also did Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso's come back in the near future. We want to rewatch that. We have shows. Also, we started recently. Friends and what's it show again? Friends and some acquaintances. I can't remember. It's a John Hamm show on Apple TV. Friends and something. But it's a good show. I love it. Wife, I'm going to watch that tonight. An episode 2 tonight. Season 2 returns in April. So I'm watching more enjoyable content, listening to more enjoyable content. I'm burnt out on the day-to-day media stuff all the time. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop listening to it as much, but I'm going to restrict the amount of time I put into it. I'll pick and choose the shows I'll listen to. And that's it. Bottom line. So one more thing we got here. Speaking of media and my content, you guys, if you guys have been following me for years, you know that I have this show and I have the Earnestly Speaking Unfiltered show. Now, Unfiltered existed off and on anyway for 9 years, actually. It's funny, I started doing that show back in 2017. And the point of the Unfiltered show was to have another podcast that they require me to have video, that require me to put production into, just kind of something I can just react to things. The whole purpose was to have like a topic-centric show that was more in the moment, especially too, like if there's something that happens in sports or media or in politics, whatever, anything happens that is kind of time sensitive or just something that's going to put out there in the open, and doesn't require me having to get home to record a microphone or wait for the time to record it. I record my phone or record whatever. That's what that show was for. And we've done a lot of stop and goes in that show through the years. That show has gone through a lot of metamorphoses through the years. But recently, I have started using that feed again to just put out content. I'll be honest with you, what influenced this recent change and the rebranding once again was, so I'm also a writer. I before I got into podcasts years ago, I was a blogger. I used to write all the time about my life, about sports, about whatever. The same way I use this podcast for. But what happened was that becoming a father, writing takes time. Like, you have to find the right place to write, the right time to write, the invested time to write. It depends how long what you're writing for. And then you got to edit. You got to make sure the spelling's correct, the grammar's correct. You don't want to put out shoddy content either. So I started thinking about this. I was like, well, what if I use the Unfiltered feed as like a way to put out things I would blog about, random thoughts in my head, and not worry about the theme music, and keep it raw. Just keep it raw and keep it authentic, and keep it very raw. Like, I don't need a perfect microphone. I don't need production, none of this stuff. Just come in there, speak a piece, do a 5-minute thing. It could be one show a day. It could be 3 shows a day. An episode, whatever. And I've started doing that since like December, and I've enjoyed it because there's a lot of things that I can't get to on this podcast because sometimes I wait. I like to spread out the content on the show. So I like to do a solo show once a week. But prior to this month anyway, I would do 1 or 2 solo shows a week. But sometimes I would spread it out. But sometimes there are things that I want to talk about that are kind of like time sensitive. And that's why that show came about. Now, I also through the years have made that show off and on a video option too also. That's ending. I don't want to do it anymore. That's going to be solely a audio experience where I'm going to do, I'll do stuff in the studio. There'll be episodes here and there where I'll like be here sitting in the studio and I'll just randomly cut a quick 5-10 minute, I say promo, but 5-10 minute, rant. I'm going to call that. That's what those are. It was rants. And, but a lot of times I do those on the road. Like I'll record those things on the way to work, on my breaks at work. I might do it while I'm in my bed by myself. And if I'm just bored in my bed, I'll rip a quick 5-10 minute rant on something that's on my mind. That's important to me. That's where that show is. That's where that show should be. And honestly, that's where the show is going to stay. Okay. So yes, we rebranded that show. So that show is, I've always said for years that show is kind of like a B-side of this podcast. Like this podcast is more of the more well-produced, with the guests and more structured and whatnot for the most part, like this one, for example, this episode, for example. Whereas that show is more raw, in the moment, uncut, unfiltered. We call it unfiltered for a reason. It is also the B-side. I call it the B-side of the podcast. Honestly, about podcasts. So if you guys care to know about my random thoughts of the day on anything for that matter, because it's not just a sports show, it's the same thoughts. I might have thoughts on my kids saying something to me. Head over there. It's a separate feed. Earnestly Speaking Unfiltered. Check it out. That thing's updated pretty much daily now, I'll be honest with you. It's not to say that show will be a daily show. There could be 2-3 days where I don't record shit because I have nothing on my mind. But there'll be some days where I might record 2 or 3 episodes at a time just because I have things on my mind. So most likely we have 1 a day though. But trust me, there have been times I've done 2 already in a day. So check it out. Subscribe to that on any podcast platform, of course. That is only audio though. Only audio. All right. And that will do it today for this podcast. Once again, dated January 22nd, 2026. I am on X at EJ Christian 7, Earnestly Podcast, of course, all podcast catchers. Of course, also check out, like I said a second ago, the Unfiltered podcast as well, too. Until we talk soon, that's it for me. I love you guys. Take care and see ya.